Sure. So, being an IT engineer, my expertise is in technology, but not exactly in the presentation of my history. I am in my mid 50s, so I do have an extensive amount of work history. So I struggled with the concept of, one page or two page, a lot of conflicting advice available on the internet, as well as, in this world of artificial intelligence, I was concerned about applicant tracking systems and how they may filter out my resume based on a lack of, keywords or, inadequate experience in some of my previous jobs. So that's what led me to, secure a professional resume that would represent my true background and experiences. Yeah, so I used a AI tool called JobRite.ai, which helps to submit resumes that are tailored to each specific role. And during a presentation, like a 1 hour video call to their, you know, hundreds of people, it was suggested to really up your resume and provide a more professional resume. So that was kind of the impetus. So shortly after that, I did some research, saw your organization, and then on Reddit, I specifically saw, I believe it was somebody who worked at a large search engine company that starts with the letter G. They mentioned that they were laid off and that their employer provided them with your services from Resumeable as a way for them to, get back into the workforce. So I thought, well, if it's good enough for them, then it's likely good enough for me. I then leveraged ChatGPT to get an assessment of your reputation, and ChatGPT gave a very positive review. So I then, went through and I decided that if I'm going to be looking for a career where I can make in excess of $150,000 a year, that investing less than 1,000, more than 600 and less than 1,000 in my resume is a worthy investment. And I chose to go with your most expensive feature, rich option because I felt that, my investment would be secure and that any issue I may have would result in further refinements down the road. Yeah, so, I uploaded my resume. I added 4 roles, I believe it was, that I found on LinkedIn that I felt were my aspirational assignments. And one of them was a role that I eventually was hired, I accepted the offer to. So the person who wrote my resume, who's based in Chicago, followed up right away, said, you should have this soon. He submitted my resume and it looked great. I filtered it through ChatGPT, which I often do. It gave me a bit of feedback and I questioned that feedback as well. So I went online and I said, here's some of my feedback. And he said, let's have a call. So we scheduled a call and I met him online and it was very nice. And we discussed, he said that, kind of designed that you don't have to tailor each resume submission for each job. It should be broad enough to be accepted for the roles you're seeking. So I got 2 resumes, one as an independent contributor, one as a manager, which I previously was. And I used that resume to submit for the job that I was eventually hired on. He did a rewrite, and in the rewrite, it was just, maybe a few words were modified, and that's all. But I eventually used that resume to apply for the job again, which I was eventually hired in, which is very exciting. And overall, I was laid off on October 15th. I forget when I purchased your product, but it was sometime maybe in early November. I accepted an offer last Friday. So I was hired a New York Stock Exchange listed quantum computer company where a lot of the leaders are Googlers, Amazon, Deloitte and Touche, very, surpassed my expectations. I even submitted a role to NVIDIA. The feedback I got was your resume is very impressive, and we'd like to, discuss the role with you. I had to bow out of that opportunity because I was retained by this quantum computer company. But yeah, to be selected by NVIDIA is really great. I even submitted a role. I live in Boston, so I submitted for a role at the Harvard University Chan School of Medicine, and I received an interview on that as well. One additional note is I even applied for a role for a large insurance company, and they came back and said, your role, your resume is very impressive. Why are you submitting for this role? Aren't you more advanced than this? So that was some of the feedback I got on my resume. You hear, people comment on the challenges and the changing dynamics of the market due to artificial intelligence and certain political events. I was quite fortunate to have, resolved my search in as little as 6 weeks, especially during a holiday period, right? You had the week of Thanksgiving where there wasn't much traction available. The resume, I believe, helped to achieve results that far exceeded my expectations. Oh, I definitely would recommend your services. And I think that your major focus in the future should be the following. You should work with organizations that are going through dynamic changes. Maybe they're doing reductions in force to save on costs. Maybe artificial intelligence is removing the needs for certain roles. I think the most compassionate thing to do would be for the human resource leaders to retain your services and provide this as a benefit to employees, because it would reduce the reliance on giving such a economic benefit as several weeks or months of salary to these departing employees. I think we could actually save costs by saying we're going to reduce the amount of, financial assistance we're giving you, but we're giving you an even more powerful tool, and it's this service. No one's really an expert at writing a resume. Maybe it's something you do less than a dozen times in your life, maybe twice a decade, some hope. So I think it's really something that you should really offload as a resource. I even tried to use artificial intelligence to write my resume. I don't think that's what artificial intelligence is built for, as well as the additional letters like focus, the letter you receive to send to recruiters who may have looked at your LinkedIn, or hiring managers after you interview with them, the thank you letters. That whole package really just ups your candidate profile and makes you much more successful. So not only do I suggest that you reach out to individuals who are looking to land that next role in their career, but I think a real focus on C-suite executives to retain your services, to give to those impacted in the organization would be extremely powerful. And I think it would lead to a lot of, positive comments where people say, I did work at this organization. Unfortunately, I was let go, but I received this exceptional benefit and it helped me move forward in my career. So I have a positive thing to say about my former employer.